I'm Peter van der Heijden. I work at Utrecht University as a statistician, and for 1 day a week as well at the University of Southampton in the Department of Social Statistics. So we recently finalized a report for the Dutch government on the number of irregular migrants and completed with that a series of research projects of 25 years. So I'm going to talk about it, give a bit of a historic perspective about the Netherlands, about the method with which we make the estimates, and the results. So there are a number of factors shaping the size and composition in the Netherlands, and they're listed here. So for the migration policy in the 60s, labor migration was organized and everything was more or less allowed. And then it was a bit more prohibited from 69 to 91. But at the same time, it was what we call tolerated. I don't know whether that is an English word. And there were also people regularized in the Netherlands. And from 1999 onwards, it's increasingly restrictive and deterrent in the Netherlands. And there's also a linkage of registers so that it is easier for the police and organizations like that to point down people who are not authorized to work in the Netherlands, who are not regularized. I find that a very difficult word to say in English. Always stutter a bit. Now, I'm interested in estimating the number of irregular migrants, and that is also that number is for a large part also the result of who is from which country are these people coming. So in 2004 to 2007, there were many countries who became part of the EU. In the Netherlands, we always had many people from Poland working, and because those countries became part of the EU, people from those countries could not be irregular migrants anymore. So that brought down the size of the population enormously. Then in 2018 and 2023, there was a lot of control of all sorts of things in places where people worked. Greenhouses is a place where people work, or in the fields. And during COVID-19 there were less controls, but at the moment there are more forced controls, and we give a bit of extra attention to this because the most recent estimates are from 2018 to 2023. And at this moment, before we started to estimate, we had the idea, well, it's a bit unclear what we can find, because on the one hand, there are very restrictive migration policies. So from that perspective, you expect a decline. But on the other hand, we have a booming economy in the Netherlands, and there's a shortage of labor everywhere, almost. So that's more a pull factor for people to come to the Netherlands. Now, the way we make estimates is as follows. So we are using counts, as you will see on later slides, and we use police data of apprehended irregular migrants. And in those police data, we take, for example, a year, and then we count the number of individuals that are apprehended once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. And from that information, we estimate the number of individuals who are seen 0 times, because when we know that number and we add them up to the other people, we have the population size. So we have what you call in statistics truncated data. So we have, because we use register data of individuals, we don't have individuals that are seen 0 times, right? So that's what you call that truncated at 0. Now we make estimates using all sorts of covariates. Now, for example, for 2017-18, the data look like this. So the number of people who are seen 0 times is unknown, but we know that, so there are 2,394 people seen once. So we have these numbers over here, and then we have to make a guess. We have to estimate the 0, and for that we have a well-motivated model. And that motivated model is the Poisson distribution. This is just to show you that the exponents that you learned at secondary school are actually used in some places. And so what you see over here is as you have a Poisson parameter of 1, you get the probabilities that add up to 1 over here. And for 0.5 as well. So what we have is we have these counts over here, and we try to find the Poisson parameter that makes these numbers as likely as possible. And when we then have, and from that we estimate that number 0. So there are many more details in the paper, and there are other papers in statistical journals as well where we explain this. So I just want you to have a bit of feel what we're doing, and then we can go over it more quickly. So the important thing is that the Poisson distribution is realistic for human behavior, because it is what we call in statistics, it is a limiting case of the binomial distribution. The binomial distribution is if you have a small probability from say 0.10, and you throw, well, and you draw capital N times, you draw something capital N times, then the number of, so for example you have 3 out of 10, then that 3 is the result of the binomial distribution, and that is very similar then to the Poisson distribution. Now the special thing of that binomial distribution is that we can show that the p, the probability, does not have to be constant. Now that p, what we're talking about here is the probability that someone is apprehended, that an irregular migrant is apprehended. So it doesn't have to be constant, and that is realistic for human behavior, because when we look for a year, there's no reason to assume that over the whole year this probability is constant. Also, if you take shorter periods and you have numbers from that, you can add up those numbers for the same individual, and then still all the properties of the Poisson distribution holds. There are also problems with this. So this independence assumption in the binomial distribution assumes that changes in the Poisson parameter may not be the result of being apprehended or not. So we have, if for example, it may be the case that someone is apprehended and he is afraid to be apprehended again, then that would be a violation, right? So if his or her behavior changes because of that, that's something we cannot really assess what is the case, because you can also say, well, for those people who are apprehended and cannot be sent back to their home country, they know that they will be on the street again after some time, so there is no reason to be afraid, and it could very well be that that independence assumption holds. There is something like the population should be closed, and for that reason we take a relatively short period of a year, so that we approach that a bit. And we only apply the model for the group where the assumption is likely to hold. So there are 3 groups in our estimates. We have the people who are effectively expelled, so they are sent back to their home country, and that it is controlled that they actually go. The second group is the group that cannot be expelled from the Netherlands because the home country doesn't want them back, or you don't know the home country, or that kind of thing. And the third group are the Europeans. Now the model is only estimated on the group that is not expelled, because those people can be apprehended again, right? When people are expelled, then the number would stop. then it stops at 1, and that is then a violation of of the assumptions. So we have, well, I skipped this one, and we have covariates. So the covariates, so not every individual has the same probability. So we have variables like gender, age, the region in the world where they come from, 5 regions, and the 4 big cities in the Netherlands versus the rest. So we estimate the model on the people that are left with supervision or where this is unknown. And then with these estimates we project it on this group and on the Europeans. And if we do that, so for a recent year, you get something like this. So it is a shot, it is a heroic attempt more or less, but we have confidence intervals that are also quite wide, that makes it more realistic. And these are then the estimates that we got. So this is the last period, and you see over here that over here it was enormous, but then we had still all these Eastern European people who came to the Netherlands to work without having a permit, and when they entered the EU, those countries, it went down, and so it turns out that the number of undocumented of irregular migrants is a relatively small problem in the Netherlands. It may be that we have missed certain groups. So for example, if you have groups that work in households, then, and those people would never come on the street, they cannot be apprehended. And I need apprehended people to make projections of the people that I have missed, right? So it may be that this is an underestimate for groups like that. It may also be that children is such a group because children are not so easily apprehended unless they are with their parents. But still, if the violation of the assumptions is constant over time, then we can still interpret the trend, and the trend is that it is more or less stable or slightly declining. So here you see, so for example 2007 to 2013, 7 to 2013, or you see it declines enormously, and then the groups, those people from those countries are not irregular migrants anymore, because they are allowed to travel through Europe if they don't overstay a certain period. So, concluding, we have register data, and using register data is cheap, because the register data exist. We have no sampling problems, as with surveys. That's also an advantage. But we have to make certain assumptions, and those assumptions are not fully controllable. They cannot be really checked, because we were not involved in the creation of the data, right? So you do not sit next to a police officer to see what he writes down, actually, after something that has happened, and but that is a typical data science problem, that those data are not made for us, right? Those data are made so that if they apprehend someone, they can link him to himself if he was apprehended before. That was the aim. And one of the things that is also nice with police data is that if the police is going to work in certain periods twice as hard, our estimates are insensitive to that. I can show you that very quickly over here. So, for example, if the police is going to work harder, then more people are apprehended twice. So people go from here to here, so that the number of zeros is not blown up because of the effort of the police. So thank you for your attention.